Okay, we are officially live, and good evening, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of Our Voices. Today is Sunday, November the 19th, excuse me, 2023, and thank you for tuning in. With us today on Our Voices, I have author extraordinaire, Mr. Bill Snow. Those are things FD Florida Democratic Party, which would include Florida Democratic Party, the treasurer of the Democratic Black Caucus of Florida, the state committee woman for Okaloosa County, and everything else, Jill Lewis-Daggs, our media mogul and television owner station for WBQP, Mr. Vernon Watson. And lastly, but certainly not least, the president of the Santa Rosa County Democratic Black Caucus, the first vice president of the Democratic Black Caucus of Florida, and candidate for president of the Santa Rosa County Democratic Women's Club, is Christina Forrest. And thank you for tuning in. I am Derek Scott, and as always, I will be filling in as we are without several of our hosts today. Of course, Mr. McIntosh is with the rest of his family as they go into, they finish up the viewing for today of Miss Carol McIntosh and go into the funeral service for tomorrow. If you have not yet seen or heard or not privy to the arrangements, let me just put them up so you can see them here on your screen. Oh, that's the wrong one. Her services for Miss Carol McIntosh will be tomorrow at 11 a.m. here in Pensacola at the Antioch Missionary Baptist Church, which is at 625 North D Street. Again, that's at 11 o'clock tomorrow, Monday, November the 20th, at Antioch Missionary Baptist Church. As usual, please keep the McIntosh family in your prayers and your thoughts. And Mr. Vernon, I think if I heard you say correctly, they may be able, if they can't attend it, they may be able to see it online. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. We intend to air it live on WBQP and also live stream it out on social media tomorrow if everything goes well.
Thank you for that. So we are going to go ahead and get right into our program for today. And we'll start with our normal roundtable, and I'll start with Mr. Bill Snow. Is there anything that you have top of mind that you want our viewing audience to know, or things that are pressing concern for you?
No, nothing right off the rip. Maybe after everybody goes around, something may come to me.
Okay. Sounds good. I'll move next to Jill. Jill, do you have anything that you'd like to share?
I'm gonna follow Bill. Bill and Jill are gonna go with no. I don't have other than I'm glad to be here and glad our listeners join us every week, and just blessed and honored to be here. And of course, thoughts and prayers to the family. It's still very difficult for all of us, and we know it's extremely difficult for them. So we're just honored to be here to keep the show going.
Yeah, absolutely. Mr. Vernon, do you have anything that you would like to share?
No, not really. Other than what we just talked about, Derek, I wanted to, for the folks that Carol and Jerry is so loved by so many people in Pensacola, and so well known by many people, and to be honest with you, I had people that's from all over the country that have been watching us, kind of was shocked by it, and they reached out to me and just said they couldn't believe it about Carol, because they always watched her here on the show and on the TV station here. And so, and I said, well, they're obviously going to have a packed house. I'm almost definitely sure of that. And there are going to be people that are not able to go to the service that want to go to the service. So I thought it was my duty to bring the service to them in case they can't get it out. So what we intend to do, little technical things go if everything goes well, because we have to depend on good internet and a lot of good stuff. So, but our intentions is to air the funeral live on WBQP TV, as well as we're going to live stream it out to YouTube and Facebook and Twitter, all of our social media accounts, and hopefully that anybody that cannot come to the funeral themselves they can catch it live, or maybe they can catch it later, because once we put it on social media, once we put it on Facebook and so forth, they'll be able to go back and look at it sometime later on demand. If they really miss it, then they can always go to my mobile app. It's going to be archived there on the mobile app for them to see it as well. So I'm hoping that anybody that wanted to go and wasn't able to go would have the same benefit for them, because Carol and Jerry have been great friends of mine for many years, and it just whatever I can do to help it.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you, this week has been filled with people reaching out either by email or Facebook Messenger or text asking, what are y'all talking about so much about Miss McIntosh? What is going on? It's been very difficult to share with those, people. Like, unfortunately, she's transitioned, and like everybody, it's just been a shock. I'm like, no, it's been tough, and but we will continue, as we said before, we will continue the good work that she has blazed the path for us to go. Jill and I were just talking about earlier today how you could hear her say, and I was like, we didn't give homework today, but it was kind of like you could hear her say, did you do your homework today? We had something to do for the show. Did you do it? And so, we will continue to just progress and move forward. And most importantly, do what we can to make sure that all the work that she has done, that she fought so hard to see the change, is not just done in vain. I think that's so.
Hey, Derek.
Mm-hmm.
Well, unfortunately, we would have got an F for today. We would maybe except for Christina, because I don't think we got around to Christina yet, because everybody else didn't have any homework.
Yeah, exactly. Christina.
So yeah, I have a couple things. One is, sitting around and talking to a day, Derek, with you and Jill and the family of Miss Carol, and just seeing all the beauty she brought into everyone's world. Looking at going back to like Jill and I were talking about the Juneteenth celebration and everything that she made. It was such a labor of love for her. She put her own personal touches on everything to make it as beautiful as it could be. And I don't know anybody at all more stylish, had more grace than Miss Carol McIntosh. I mean, just absolutely just phenomenal. And not just on the outside, her heart was beautiful. It's beautiful. Derek, looking at you and how, you're really transforming within the democratic world, Escambia County. You're helping people get elected. People are feeling engaged. People are feeling heard who had never felt heard before. And knowing that, Miss Carol might be a part of that and still is a part of that. You know, I was going back through some of her posts and just her affirmations for young women and, you know, her rites of passage for young women, and to believe in yourself, know where you come from, know your history, stand tall, stand proud, and know who you are. Know who you are. And I mean, Jill, when you were talking about you two had so much alike, I totally agree. The attention to detail, the fine touches, it's not done right, it doesn't look right, this isn't the product we're going to put forward. No, I'm like, I'm done. You know, but that's what I was thinking about. Vernon, I was thinking about the show with you and how, you know, when we start talking about, you know, like Trump, and how she would be like, okay, Vernon, you're going to get to talk, but just hold on a minute. Just hold on. And then Bill Snow, how you would take us home every time. You know, she knew she could depend on you to take us home, open it up, take us home. And you were there the whole time. I'm the newest of the bunch. So, I mean, I'm just grateful to be part of the bunch, you know. I used to, you know, I was a fan. I was one of those at home, like typing all this stuff in, you know, as y'all were talking, and like the Facebook apps and stuff. And to be here is really an honor, and it's an honor that I'm just really grateful for. And my heart again is with the entire McIntosh family, all of them, friends, neighbors. She impacted generations of children, young and old, you know. And that's the legacy, you know. And she loved voting. She loved to educate about voting. So my message is, I would like for during this holiday week, everybody to log into the Supervisor of Elections website. You just put Supervisor of Elections and your county. You can type there and see, am I registered to vote, or am I eligible to vote, and where do I vote? It will pull up all your information. Now is a great time to double check your information. Make sure your name is spelled right. Make sure your address is correct. Make sure the correct party is there. I had to go and correct things on mine just recently. I was like, that's not right. That's not me. So I had to go back and do that. Now is a really good time to do that, because we're going to be having the presidential primary election coming up in March. There's a lot of things coming up. It's going to be coming up fast. And these are things we can do now to help get prepared. And also, you know, double check with your family. When you're sitting around, not to argue, but just to listen to young people. You know, that's something Miss Carol always did. She always listened to young people. She would take it in, and she'd come back and she's like, I got a solution for that. You know? So please, you know, double check, make sure all of your voting information is correct. Have those conversations with young folks. Make sure that you are registered for vote by mail. If you didn't know, DeSantis canceled all vote by mail the end of last year. So if you haven't registered this year for vote by mail, you are not registered for vote by mail. You need to go in and register. We need you to do that. Need you to do that for yourself. Need you to go and tell folks when they come over for dinner, hey, y'all need to do this. You know, I get it. I know a lot of folks want to go vote in person. Awesome. But have that backup plan. Yeah. Be able to be the first person with the information on your block about what's going to be on that ballot. So let's get that done. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Good words. You know, it's funny, you mentioned Just have a quick story. I mentioned it earlier today when you talked about Miss Carol's eye for detail, and you know your best friend over there, Jill, and her eye for detail. Don't turn your head. I had to tell the story because I thought it was funny. We were at our last event back in August with Equal Ground, and they were having a discussion on whether the tables needed tablecloths or not. And so they were like, I think not, I think so, I think not. And they said, Derek, what do you think? And I was like, no, I don't know. I'm not in this one. I'm turning around. Y'all handle that. And I walked away. So yes, it definitely, it's those type of the banter and the tenacity that I'll miss, and the eagerness and the hopeful. That is where we are, and we will continue to carry the torch, that she started for us. So thank you for that. I want to share a couple of things to see if you guys were aware, if you have heard about it. I know we talked somewhat briefly just in conversation about it, but Mr. Vernon, Bill, did y'all see what the city of Jackson, Mississippi has done with respect to their judicial system this most recent time? It was a broadcast and announced this week. So in the city of Jackson, Mississippi, where I think their percentage of demographic is like 90% Black, or a large number, very large majority. Yes, sir.
I don't mean to regress, but I saw the list of topics, and when you went around the table and asked us if anything was pressing on us, I didn't know that was going to be the Miss Carol's section. So I really want to speak a little bit.
Oh, go ahead.
On Miss Carol. Jill alluded to the fact that I've been there for a while. When I did the first show, I was actually just a guest on that show. And after the show, Miss Carol said, man, the energy you got, why don't you come and co-host the show with us? And I hadn't thought about it, but I knew it would be an honor to, because I would like Jill, Christina, had been watching the show Sunday night after Sunday night. And I think I called in a time or two, and I would text comments as well. But once I met, I had met Jerry a couple of weeks earlier, and I was on my book tour, and he asked me to come and be a guest, and naturally I did. I sat in, and man, Miss Carol was authentic then, and she never wavered. I'm talking about 7, almost 8 years, the very same person. But see, we were doing the show then live in the studio, which was in the home pre-COVID. And the Zoom is awesome, great invention, but y'all, it was something magical about the in-studio shows. Sitting right next to Jerry's right, and then Miss Mack and whoever our other hosts would be or were. It was just something magical about that. And just being in that studio doing this, talking about the issues that are so important to our community, it was just so awesome. And then to end up being on the board with Movement for Change and being in countless meetings, forums, candidate forums, 2020 planning meetings, think tank meetings, just registering people to vote. The blackest bus in America when it came to Movement for Change in 2016, that day will live in infamy in my heart, because everyone who cares anything about our community and voting was there. Even the Honorable Reverend H.K. Matthew, everybody. I mean, so just to have spent all of that time with her. And I remember at that time I was a single father. My daughter, I got her every other week before she moved to Biloxi. And I remember we had a board meeting, And I called them to say, hey, look, I got my daughter with me this week. And Miss Carol was quick to say, oh, bring her. This is the kind of environment she needs. I mean, and then later on, she made sure I had her in the event where she honored the young Black ladies. And that picture with her crowning my princess with the tiara, and she let them choose their own slogan. And my daughter chose, I am brave. All of who Miss Carol was means so much to me. I posted this week on Facebook that we were at the Movement for Change banquet just this past June, and I chose a smaller piece of wall art, and I told her after the fact, Miss Carol, I really love this. You are really, really talented. She said, you know what? She said, I'm going to make another one, a big one, especially for you. And I said, okay. And sure enough, she did. And it's almost 3D. It has become one of my most prized possessions. But I was talking with my brother, Jerry, this morning. And Jerry told me something I had never thought about, was that everybody on the show that has co-hosted, Miss Carol handpicked. He said she had a knack for choosing people of integrity. And I did not know that, but she did ask me right there on the spot when the lights and camera went off, y'all to come and man, just being with them, I've learned so much under their tutelage, things and topics that were beyond me, that net neutrality, all of the things that just wasn't in my, they put there, and I went to view her today. Joe Mars did a wonderful job. But I sat there. It's just me and her in the place. I just sat there, man, because it's still so hard to believe that she's gone. I mean, I'm driving daily and I see people walking, and it's like I see her. Cars drive by, and I'm like, God, what is really happening? But it's it's just hard to believe that she's actually gone. 4 weeks ago, she was on the live with us, executive producer of the show, and has done a wonderful job. In fact, when we used to go to the studio, she used to have everything printed out before we got there, because she wanted us to get there early so we could study up on the topics. It wasn't just shooting from the hip. I mean, I could go on and on, but I won't. But I just wanted to say, I'm sorry when you said if there was something on that was pressing, because I thought that it was going to be this topic, this area for us to speak on. Yeah. But that's all I
yeah. No, you're 100% right. It's funny that you talk about the in studio live points today, because we had the opportunity today to finally meet in person Miss Keontae Humphreys, who is, for me, she's come on occasionally as so shout out to Keontae if you're watching Hulu. And she talked about the uniqueness and the specialty of being in studio and live and in person doing it, together. And so, I hate that I missed that part, when we're doing it, and the uniqueness of being in studio and actually doing a television show versus how we put it together in Zoom format now. I like it, we like it, but I'm sure it's just a different flair to it. So yeah, it's funny to hear those sentiments resonated, today as well.
So there's a couple of things you said, Bill. I was also thinking that Carol chose us. I didn't know that she specifically chose us, as you said, but she literally chose us.
For Mr. Jerry.
Show up on the show, and she just you guys are going to be co-hosts. And I don't know how Christina felt, but I was like, what? You want us to be what? And then Derek was like, she wants you to be co-host. We're like, what? No, you don't. She was like, yeah, no, we do. Yeah, really, we do. So to know that it wasn't just, happenstance. It was specific. It was, you're called to be. And that's the way I see Miss Carol. Everything she did was you're called to be. And I didn't share this last time, but at the last Movement for Change event, I too picked out something, but I picked out something for my mom. And afterwards, she said, nope, nope, Jill, I got something for you. I have something for you. And she gave me this picture of a queen. And she said, you're a queen. And I'm like, no, you're the queen. She said, no, you're the queen. And I promise I have a princess, maybe. Not princess like princess, but I'll be a princess under you, but never a queen. She was like, no, you are queen. And I needed her to tell me that, to even, like, I know some of you grew up under her, so you understood that you were kings and queens. But some of us didn't have that upbringing. I didn't have it, and I didn't get it until now. And I'm just honored and blessed that she took the time to say, Jill, you're a queen and you deserve this. And you are who you are called to be. And, I know she would say, Saturday school, and we're on here telling her kids don't want Saturday school. But if I could go back 6 months, we need Saturday school, because we need Miss Carol and we need that training. I don't know how we do what we do, but the blessing, the lessons, the history,
priceless,
the legacy.
Yeah.
It's there, and we just got to carry it on. So just our heart, she makes us who we are because
she made us all better. Yes.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. She made us all better. Hey, Pensacola News Journal took homage to say that Miss Carol McIntosh was an educator, an activist, mentor, organizer, and a true agent of change in Pensacola. She co-founded the Pensacola chapter of the National Coalition of 100 Black Women in 1993, was an officer for Movement for Change, a prominent Northwest Florida civil rights organization, and served as an officer of the Pensacola chapter of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference when the local chapter formed in 1985. Ms. McIntosh was also a longtime president of the Escambia County chapter of the Progressive Black Women Coalition. That's a really good write-up, but she was so much more.
Yeah, it's going to be, we've been talking about, I guess for me, looking at the breadth of what she touched and how much she touched it. I'm looking at 2024, like, how are we ever going to do what we need to do without Miss McIntosh? It's, and I don't know that I have an answer for it, but I know what we're not going to do is not do it because we don't have Miss McIntosh. We will do the best we can. I think she's done an excellent job of giving us a blueprint and how to do what we need to do. We just need to execute, and to the point, for those who are watching, I think Christina echoed it, and I would echo it today, tomorrow, the next day. Make sure you know your voter status. Make sure that you're registered to vote. Make sure that you're registered for vote by mail. Make sure you go out and vote. And make sure you take 10 people and make those 10 people take 10 people, and so on and so forth, till we get 100% engagement in this area to make the change that we need in 2024. We will continue to fight the good fight, and we will have to do so, as best we can. But again, I think she's prepared us, knowingly or unknowingly, has prepared us, and now it's going to be up to us to continue that in that fight. I think I started with this show just as here, can you talk a little bit about elections, and can you talk a little bit about COVID? Because at that time we were in COVID, and I was on the White House task force for COVID-19, so I had the detail necessary to share, but that was it. Never did I think this was ever going to turn into a every Sunday or a long-term, thing. It wasn't in my thought. It wasn't what I was planning to do, but clearly it was with purpose, who knew that this would turn into, this is what we're doing, and now we're keeping forward the momentum and the legacy as best we can, with that. So you guys are 100% right. 100% right. Anybody else have anything? I see Mr. Vernon with the church finger.
I had to use my church finger because I had my mics turned down. I had my mics turned off. My business partner, Troy Mims, just texted me and said, "Please remind the folks that we're going to do the services live on WBQP 12.8 on WBQP Urban Network and Urban Praise Network on 12.8. So, but as well as on social media. So if you can't get it there, get it however you can on our live stream as well. Okay. So and I'm sure we mentioned it earlier, but if he missed it, somebody else might have missed it. So we just want to repeat it. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, you were talking about Jackson, Mississippi. I have not. Give me a little hint of what's going on. I knew about the water issue up there, and then about they was trying to do something, trying to change the government to, to some crazy stuff like that. So, and I have not kept up with what's going on in Jackson this week.
You're not speaking of when the election they had the judge
ran out of ballots and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it seems like Jackson has the touch point for all things that are going wrong in Mississippi. But the one that I'm speaking of is they have created 2 judicial systems in Jackson, Mississippi. One for black.
So they caught up with the country then.
One for black people. Now you could say that, but theirs is explicit. And let me tell you why. They have now gotten in a town of 90% or whatever the percentage is. So if you're reviewing, you say, Derek, that's not accurate. Some high percentage of black people in their demographic. They now have proposed and put into plan legislation that will create a separate policing and judicial system for black and white people. What that means is that if you're driving and you're in Jackson and you're white, you can't be pulled over by a black police officer. You have to be pulled over by a white police officer. Conversely, if you're black, you're pulled over supposedly by black police officers, but I feel like they're going to make it so that white police officers can pull you over as well. But they've made 2 different channels of traffic so that white people can have their justice system in Jackson pulled over and go through a judicial process in, for lack of a better term, white court, and people of color will go through their judicial system. This is legal. This is the law and the policy that they're setting forth in Jackson, Mississippi.
Wow. It might make sense if the black judicial system were black judges judging them and black juries. But if that's not the case, it's ludicrous.
So you would be in favor of 2 different judicial systems?
It's all absurd, my friend. It's all absurd to think that they would even think down those lines. But hey, Mississippi is Mississippi burning, bro. But to me, I think nationwide we have 2 judicial systems as far as the penal code is concerned. It's no accident that prisons are full of people of color, man. No accident.
Yeah, and we say that, but now it's in paper. It's in pen to paper. Like you see it now, where we can always say in theory, there are 2 different. They always say justice is blind, everybody gets equal protection, but we know differently. In Jackson, Mississippi, this is commensurate to the water fountain. Colors only, white only. you know, and that's, and I want to remind everybody, we're in 2023. We're not in 1920, not in 1950. We're not even in 1960. We're in 2023.
Not in Mississippi. Not in Mississippi. Mississippi is still in Jim Crow era.
I know that Jill want to get in here, but I just want to remind you that I think people said the same thing in the 1870s. This is not 1860s and not 1850s. This is the 1870s. How can they do this? They can't be doing this. In 1870s, 1880s, when the things started rolling back against black folks, you know, we had just a true period of what I call some form of true freedom between, you know, during that period of time. Sometimes from 1865 to 1865 to 1875, and then things start rolling back and rolling back. That's what I'm seeing here, there. If that is true, if they got two forms that they don't want to be judged by black folks. You know, when they get arrested, they don't want black folks to arrest them. They want black folks to adjudicate their issues and so forth. So they gotta make their own law, and so they can only be judged by white people. If people can't see the handwriting on the wall, everything else that we seen rolling back freedoms, rolling back laws, y'all better you better wake up, because that and people thinking the same thing. I know people must have thought back in the 1870s. This is 1870. They can't do this. We got to go forward. We can't go backwards. You see what happened then, okay? When the Supreme Court came in with that in 1896 with Plessy versus whatever it was, Ferguson, and things just began to roll back and back and back. I can see the handwriting on the wall again that people will. We better wake up, people. We better wake up, because and start voting and exercising your rights and your civil rights. Otherwise, it's going to be as we say in the country, a long road to hoe if you don't wake up.
Yeah. Mississippi needs to wake up first too, because I got no grown black men over there calling little white children sir.
Yeah. But again, you know, if Mississippi allowed to get away with that, other municipalities are going to start doing it. It's going to start spreading throughout the country. Okay? Mm-hmm. And we're going to find ourselves in the problem. Jill, I stole your time, but I'm sorry. Go ahead. Was that Christina? Was it Christina? Well, Jill was trying to get in there, right? Go ahead, Jill. Hey, Bill. I since she's young, she can remember it. We got to get ours in when we can, or we think about it.
Hey, Miss Carol told us all, you better jump in.
Yeah, she did.
She sure told you better jump in.
She warned you.
Sticking that little finger up, man. Y'all, boy, we get hot and heavy sometimes.
Hey, we'll bite that finger off.
Yeah.
So, I want to play devil's advocate for a second. I think.
Do you?
I know. Do I? But I think I do. Because of what Bill said, but then Vernon somebody said, so that's why I said I think I do. Because a small, tiny little part of me says, but isn't it better for us to know? Because at least you know in Mississippi what the freaking rules are. You know that they have two different systems. Because everywhere else, guess what, Derek Scott? There's two different systems. It's just hidden.
Yeah, right.
In Mississippi, they know. There's no confusion. There's no, it's absolutely horrific. But at least you know.
But the difference, Jill, though.
In Florida, there's two different systems. It's just hidden. But there is absolutely two different systems.
The difference, Jill, is informal. Now they're trying to make it formal. Okay, then now they're trying to make it as a matter.
Formal is it though, Vernon? With DeSantis the way he is, with Gates the way he is, with Scott the way he is. You want me to keep going in Florida? I'm talking about just Florida. Yeah, it's not informal. It is the way it is.
Well,
they shoot us, they kill us, they marginalize us, they take away from us. They tell us that no.
But they hadn't codified. But they hadn't codified it in law. That's the problem. You know, they're doing it and getting away with it. But now, as they make it a matter of law, it's something like they're doing in Mississippi. That's where it's important.
got folks spending all this money on attorney fees when they know what the outcome is going to be. The deck is definitely stacked. The lady Justice Blind, get out of here.
Right. And, you know, and this is where, like, I said it, and, you know, I used to think that I was being somewhat hyperbolic in the approach where I said we are 2 election cycles away from
Slavery.
being back in slavery, right?
Maybe one.
You know, at this point in time, if you have now reintroduced something that we have not had in what, 60 plus years, you are now, you know, it's not as far-fetched to think that the next step is going to be we back working for free or enslavement. You know, that it's not a far-fetched concept or reality. We think we are. To your point, to everybody's point, this is why it is important to go out and make sure that you get out and vote. It is absolutely critical that you do so, Christina.
So I just want to say I totally 100% agree. And the way they have written this law is how they're getting by with it, because in the law it doesn't say that a white person can't pull over a black person. In the law it says there is a separate basically police force that is now going to be monitoring one section of the city and a separate police force for the other section of the city. Those are going to go through 2 different court systems. Now, the court system so 80% of the city is black, right? So the court system that is going to be in that one section of city, those judges are going to be appointed. Whereas right now you can vote for the judges. So there's voter suppression in it. It's a Jim Crow type law. It's a apartheid type law. You're basically dividing, you're redlining those areas for where you can go and where you can't go. And that's how they're getting away with it. The other reason they are getting away with it is because Mississippi has a Republican supermajority and a Republican governor. So this law passed strictly across party lines.
Right.
You know, everybody has been screaming about this law. But until folks vote seriously, it really matters. Even if you don't like the people on your ballot, these are the reasons why. These are the reasons why. So now where folks live in Jackson, Mississippi, those judges are going to be appointed. They used to be able to vote for them. They're going to be appointed by the judges, basically going to be from the white section of town. All of this is being run through a Republican supermajority, going up to a Republican governor, come back and say, this is how we're going to do it. So just like everybody else has said, how this happened in Jackson, Mississippi, this can happen in New Orleans. This can happen in Detroit. This can happen in any predominantly black city that has that has a Republican supermajority. It can happen anywhere.
Like Florida.
This is the blueprint for how they're going to go forward.
So I have a question. I think I'm playing devil's advocate again, but I have a question. Derek, this is to what you said. So you said that we're one election away from cycle from being in slavery. To be inclusive of everybody, so that those that might not understand what being in slavery might feel like, be like, or have be able to understand. So I'm trying to include our people that are not of color. What could you say to them to get them fired up is what my question. So we get it because we're people of color and we know what one election cycle away from slavery means. But to our counterparts, people that are not of color, how do we get them to get on fire so that they understand that this is critical to them too? Because I think that is part of the equation too. It can't just be people of color.
That's a good Question.
Why would they be? It's to their advantage. It's to people, to white people's advantage. So why would they get fired up? They're not feeling the pain of this. If anything, white people benefit from our suffering. You know, so I hear your question. That's a great question. How we get the only thing for those that I can see is just people of good conscience that will do that. I guess we got enough, but you got a lot of people good conscience just sit back and do nothing though. That is the problem in itself. And I still stand by what I say. I know you don't disagree with this, but I think that a lot of great white people in this world. And I don't think that they all are bad, and I think they they might be the silent majority, but at the same time, they're benefiting from it, and so why should they rock the boat? Christine, I know you're trying to get in there.
So, yeah, let me just clarify why I'm asking the question. So I'm asking the question because if we're one election cycle away from it, we can't do it by ourselves.
Right.
So we got to come up with an answer. And Vernon, I think you're right. And all black people aren't great, and they're not all bad, and they're not all good, and all white people aren't good, and all bad, and all of that, and everybody's whatever. So this is I'm not talking about the color of people's skin as I'm talking about a united front somehow, so that we're not one election cycle away from hell, whatever that hell is for you. That's what I'm saying. So what do we do? Because it can't be just one group of people on either side. It really can't be, or we're stuck and we're not going to give them that out. So let's try to create the avenue that says we're working together and this is why.
Yeah. Christine, did you have something you want to say?
So, a couple things. One is I do feel that this law is completely about color because it is only affecting Black folks. The city is 80% Black. It's white folks in power making these decisions. So I do believe this law is targeted has racial bias to it. That being
Yes, but outside of this law, my question wasn't to the law at all. It was to Derek's question, just to clarify. It had nothing to do with that law, just in general to his statement about one election cycle away from.
So going to that, what I would say is that just like here, we stand shoulder to shoulder with a lot of really, really good white folks here, right here. So we need more. And that's not work we can do. White folks have to go into their circles, their churches, speak up, speak out, become more vocal if we're going to see change. It's not just going to happen with our voices. And exactly what you said, Jill, it's not just, our voices aren't going to just change that. But the folks who see that it's wrong have to start speaking up. Otherwise, our entire nation is going to be somewhere none of us want.
Jill, Christina, when you said that, the thought came to my mind was the letter from the Birmingham jail that Dr. King wrote, and to the clergy and the folks supposed to be of goodwill. And then I don't know what it did it have any effect, because people know right, but whether they do right or not is something else. There's another question. And you got to understand that people benefit from this. They don't want to be inconvenienced. It's like nobody wants to be inconvenienced. And they thinking that, well, this is going to inconvenience me. It's, I live in a quiet white neighborhood, and my children go to the best of schools, and now you guys want to upset the apple cart, and I'm not going to say anything, even though I agree with you, but at the same time it just might affect my privileges. So that it's a tough one, because the reason it's tough, I believe, is because until you walk a mile in another person's shoes, you're not going to understand it. You're not going to understand their pain unless you've been there and done that. You sympathize with them. What's the difference between sympathize, and empathizing? Maybe you can maybe you sympathize or empathize with them. I don't know. I forgot which one was which. But you can't feel the same pain because, and you don't want to feel. You could, but you're not willing to sacrifice yourself to do that. And that's why I think that it's going to be an uphill battle, getting folks opposite of us to really understand our plight, because they haven't been there.
Well, I think, to Jill, to your point, and maybe the way to appeal is that we look at it right now in this very particular situation, the very environment that we're in, the climate that we're in. It's about race, right? When we look at it, it's, to Christina's point, it is affecting a marginalized community, the Black community, also brown in this situation as well, and negatively impacting them to the detriment. You continue down that path to the point, at some point in time, it can't be about race anymore. It then moves over to socioeconomic class, in a class system. And that's when you start separating white people with money from white people without money. So right now, it's about race, and it will continue about race. But when you run the risk of, I hate to put economics in the law, diminishing returns, it can't be always about race. At some point, they will have exhausted all they can do to Black and brown folks. So then they start moving. Now let's get back to the socioeconomic part of it. And that's when you start targeting people who are white, who then look like you, but then may not be able to have the same privileges as they once are afforded, because just on the basis of them being white. And so you have to look at it. If you don't act now, they came for me now, they're going to come for you later. And this is the part that you have to be. You have to be on the part of, I hate to say being a step ahead, but making sure you see the writing on the wall once it comes, and you act accordingly now. And just do it because it's morally the right thing to do as well. And I see you don't agree. You're about to not agree.
No, I'm not.
No, I'm talking about Jill. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
So she was like, no.
Go ahead, Bill, if you had something.
I just wanted to hit our live Facebook stream really, really quick. Shirley Baker weighing in out of North Carolina says Mississippi is most definitely burning. She says covert and overt plantation politics, Jim Crow South Survivor 63. Rose Shelby Williams says they can read Project 2025 and know what will happen if Trump and his cronies get reelected. Lois Bless out of St. Louis, Missouri says, you're right, Mr. Vernon.
Yeah. And you know, the other sad part about it is that it's just not only white folks. It's the group of our Black folks, young Black folks, that have never experienced the effects of racism. They don't understand it. They don't know it. And when we talk about it, they think it's a myth. It's mythological stuff that we talk about, because they haven't experienced. You know, they have experienced plenty of covert racism, but they don't recognize it. But because you and I have experienced not only covert racism but overt racism, that's when we know it. And so since they haven't experienced a lot of overt racism, they seem to think that it doesn't exist. And that's what scares the hell out of me right now. When I talk to young people, and even since they had this show, and I was telling you about my children not thinking that they should support Biden. I did a little further research with young folks. I'm telling you, I'm scared. I'm scared. I'm not scared because like I said, I'm in the fourth quarter. Okay, so I don't have to deal with much of their shenanigans. But my children and their children will have to deal with the shenanigans. I would prefer them not to be in slavery if we can help it. So that's why they need, and they talk about, y'all talk about that. They're thinking we talking hyperbolically, and we're thinking that we talking stuff that can never happen again. That's what they're thinking in their mind. Slavery can never happen again in the United States of America. I'm going to give you a real live example of what I'm talking about. My father grew up in the Great Depression, okay? And he was focused on it. He always made sure that we focus on economics and money and stuff like that, because he said that, it could be another depression. It could be another depression. And so I never knew what a depression was, never experienced it. And so we wrote him off as being, skeptical about depression. But more the more I experienced the racism stuff, the more I began to understand what he was saying about depression, even though we haven't had a deep depression like we had back in the 30s, but we have had minor scrimmages like that, but it is not too far that it could still happen again. And that's what we're trying to get young people to understand. Slavery and some form of slavery can certainly happen again. It may not happen to the same extent where we've been chained, bound and chained, but we might. You just never know. So I'm afraid that we need to get to talking to these young folks. And when these polls come out and they're talking about Trump beating Biden, I just can't fathom that. But those what the polls are saying now, okay? And the young people, I saw something they was reading about people under 30 don't believe in Biden. I just can't understand that. But anyway, let me let you all have your opinion about that.
No, yeah, you said it right. And I wanted to touch base on something that that Bill said earlier about it. This is all predicated on people not being able to vote, right, or not being able to, or being disenfranchised. And to something that Mr. Bill said earlier, in Jackson County, in their most recent municipal election, they ran out of ballots in a town that is predominantly Black, that could have altered the outcome of an election process in the state of Mississippi, where in the state of Mississippi, 2023, Black people were turning out at record numbers to vote. They ran out of ballots. Intentional, not intentional.
Well, the thing about that is a judge ordered that the polls stay open later to give everybody a chance, but a higher judge overrode that. Now, when Christina comes back and say, we've got to get out and vote, we got to get out and vote. And then when the people attempt to get out and vote, this tomfoolery, trickery is so disenfranchising. And that's the whole point. That's what they want to do. Mm-hmm. But we can't lay down and succumb to that tomfoolery, trickery.
You're absolutely correct. Where do we go? This is, to your point, that was designed, whether it was intentional or not, the outcome was that it disenfranchises people, right, and suppresses their ability to vote, especially where the press was advertising Black folks were coming out in record numbers in the state of Mississippi to make a purposed outcome of the election. Mm-hmm. And in the largest town that's predominantly Black, you run out of ballots. Mm. When the judge says, nope, stay open, and then you have a judge who leans right, who says, nope, not today, y'all gonna close, what is that telling people? You're absolutely right. But again, to me, that's more evidence that if your vote didn't matter, they wouldn't work so hard to make sure that it didn't count.
That's right.
It's so true.
They are going through, going over leaps, jumping leaps and bounds and hurdles to make sure that you don't go vote, which should tell you, there's something to this voting thing. You know?
Yeah.
Jump in, Jill.
So I'm gonna play devil's advocate one more time because I think that's my thing today. I think, yes, Derek, I think you're right. It should, for a lot of people, it does say that. It says that your vote matters and that there's a reason that they're doing what they're doing. But for a lot of people, what it says is, I believed you, Derek. I believed you, Christina. I believed you, Vernon. I believed you, Bill. I believed you, Jill and Carol and Jerry. And then I was in Mississippi and they didn't let me vote and I couldn't vote. I did what you told me to do and it didn't count. And now what? And they're not seeing it. And then it gets broadcasted just like they did when they did, they arrested the people that they weren't supposed to arrest. And they put that fear tactic in, and the fear outweighs the common sense that there's a reason why they're trying to shame you or fear you into not voting. So there's got to be something more, because fear just is so much stronger. I'm just telling you, it really is. We get it because we're engaged. We get it because we know what's at stake. We get it because we want to get it. But if you're sitting at home and you're trying to decipher if it's worth it, you might actually not move.
Jill,
don't know if it's worth it.
Jill,
is it watching what's actually not the make-believe, but the truth of what's going on?
Do you think it's because we are, and this is my opinion now, y'all can agree with me or disagree with me at all, but I think black people, as I've seen them over my lifespan, as I assess it, are crisis-orientated people. When there's a crisis, we generally band together, okay? But until a crisis occurs, then we kind of laid back. And I don't think they see this as a crisis yet, okay? And so do you think any of that might play into it, or do you agree with me that we might be a crisis type of a race of folks?
Christina, you're shaking your head no.
Yeah, I thought his question was addressed to Jill, though.
No, it's just to the panel there. I'm just because I've seen when the hammer hit the nail. Okay, we can come together. Okay, you can call it rise, you can call it marching, you can call it whatever you want to call it. We generally get together, but it has to come to a crisis in my mind, what I've seen, before we act. But at that point, it's closing the gate after the cows get out. Okay, when we react in a crisis type of a mode, we're trying to close the gate now. But let's try to fix that gate so the cows don't get out. But you think we're that type of folk to do that, or are we just who we are?
So I think we are who we are, but I don't think who we are is necessarily crisis oriented. That might be regional. That might absolutely be regional. But in places like California, where they're actually planning, for 8-12 years out and are making headway towards that, in places like New York, which are planning for 12, whatever, places like Maryland, there's other places that are fully. So I don't believe that that's due to race, because that's black folks. So that's black folks all over the country that are doing that. It might be regional, because regionally, we're all a little different in how we work and how we operate. But I wouldn't attribute that to our race. And even when you look at it, internationally, absolutely not. I definitely don't think that that's who we are as a people. I think I'll use my best friend as an example. She's got plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D, and I don't think she's alone in that. And again, across across the entire world. I don't think that's an attribute to a race.
No, I tend to think that we tend to find ourselves in crisis mode because we don't have control of the goalposts, right? Every time we get to a point where we can resolve an issue and begin strategic planning, so to speak, something else, the goalpost moves, or something else happens. And then we find ourselves to be reactive to that point until we can get a firm handle on the goalposts. And by goalposts, I mean equity or a seat at the table, whatever that looks like to you as you interpret it. Then we will forever be in this state of reactivity. We've got to have enough folks to stabilize the goalposts first and get to some level of that where we can not necessarily keep the goalposts from moving it, but holding it just a little while longer while we get to the point of being able to then move forward, to then plan, prepare. I don't think we're reactive at all. I think we can execute a plan now. I think there's like no other can we execute a plan. We can get stuff done, but we don't have control of the moving pieces. I think that's the problem. Jill, you were about to say something.
So, I think, I'm trying to see if I agree or disagree. I think that
You disagree.
I do disagree. I'm trying to agree, but I think I disagree. I think that, so I think of 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that I look at that as the big picture, kind of, Vernon, of what you were saying. You know, when things like that happen, everybody pulls together. There was a time, and I just use 9/11 just because everybody pulled together. It didn't matter who you were, you pulled together, we fought, we did it. Same thing with George Floyd. I mean, there are times when we are. And to say we're not reactive, yes. So I thought your question was more, what does it take now to make that happen?
Right.
That's what he was asking, I thought. And so what's it going to take? You can't say we don't know what the goal post is or where we're going, because if we don't, then guess what? Then we're not going to know, because it's not going to happen. 2024 is not going to give you a delineated, this is the plan, because of who's in the race. It's not happening. So if we're waiting for that, I don't know, that
the Project 25 for Black folks
moment, it's not happening. It's not going to happen. So either we have to act like we're in crisis so that we'll pull together and come together and do the work that needs to be done. We need to stop stabbing each other in the back and fighting each other and breaking down each other and pulling each other down and working. There's just so much other stuff that we do, is what I see. There's some of us that truly want a way forward together. And then there's some of us that just want a way forward. They don't really care if you go with them or not. And I see that more as the problem, is that as soon as we get to, okay, here it is, we know we all got to register to vote, we know we need to do this, we know this, we know this, we know this, then there's those that are, yeah, but what about this, and what about this, and what about, there is no what about this. In 2024, there is no what about anything. You've got to register and you've got to vote. We can't tell you how to vote, but we can give you every educational piece that we possibly can to help you make the right decision. That's what we're here to do. I can't go check the box for you, because Lord have mercy, if we could, we would. But we want you to just go do it. And Derek, I think you're the youngest person on this show. Somehow we have to get 20 years younger than Derek to those people. Somehow, because it is catastrophic. I read it. I've seen it. I watched the polling. I thought it was wrong. It's everywhere. It does not seem to be wrong, Vernon. the polling, I mean, you know it, but I'm saying the polling's not good right now.
Yeah.
Biden is 16 points lower than he was with people 30 and under at a time that he should not be.
Right.
So we have to do something. And I don't know what that is. And those are what my questions are tonight. My questions are, what can we do? Instead of just saying, hey, Democrat, Democrat, Republican, Republican, I don't even care about that right now. I just want to know, how do we engage the young people? How do we get the education out there? How do we get all people, I don't care what color you are, I don't care how old you are, I don't care any of that, to be educated enough that you can make the decisions that are best for your freaking family and your community, because that's what matters. And if we did that, then we'd be where we're supposed to be anyway. If it was not so selfish, if we'd step outside of our little boxes, because in my box, I'm fine. I can make myself fine. But if you realize that your box is connected to the next box, to the next box, or the next puzzle piece, or whatever you want to say, then you realize that that's community. And community means that you have to work together. And that means you have to look out for what's best for everybody.
You said that we have to act like we're in a crisis. I don't think we have to act like it. I think we're actually in a crisis.
Yeah.
And part of the problem with this crisis is the young folk. They are a part of the crisis when you look at the polling situation. So, Vernon, I took this question, I think, from a different light, because I tend to agree with what he says. When you have a George Floyd type of situation, that's crisis mode, and we come together. Breonna Taylor, the list goes on and on. But when it comes to middle-aged and old folk, me and Vern on here talking about voting and politics, there is a disconnect. And I do agree with you wholeheartedly, Jill, with the questions you're asking. But man, the problem with it is I just don't have any. Hey, Derek is the man, and I'm sure he has the wherewithal, but we are most deaf in crisis mode right now.
Mm-hmm. I have a question, because you guys keep referencing it. I'm curious what your thoughts are. Jill, you used 9/11 as a reference point. Then you subsequently at some point referenced how we came together during George Floyd, which was then echoed by Mr. Bill there. And as an example of how we came together during a crisis. And I argue, I 100% agree with Mr. Bill that we don't have to act like we're in a crisis, because we are in a crisis. That's where we are right now. But my question is around George Floyd and around what we saw, the coalescence of civic engagement during that time. Absent the pandemic, do you think that we would have had the same level of engagement and uproar and disapproval around George Floyd as we did this year, as we did in that time period?
Sure.
You think so?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
The world was in an uproar over that.
But again,
So can you explain why you said absent the pandemic? Why do you?
Because I say, to me, in my mind, and maybe I'm a little bit more skeptical of how we are as a global community, but I think we saw the level of civil discourse and uproar around George Floyd. Let me qualify what I'm about to say. I 100% believe that the murder of George Floyd was egregious, atrocious, and we should have come together in uproar and protest and move forward as a collective in a global community. I think we had that level of engagement because it was a pandemic and nothing else was going on, so you saw it all day, every day on your television. Let's be clear, people have been murdered. Black people have been murdered at the hands of the police before George Floyd, and we didn't see the level of civic engagement and activism and uproar that we saw from a global perspective that we saw during the pandemic, where it played on your television around and around and around and around the clock. You saw it. Everybody didn't have a choice but to see it. That was what was on the television screen. It went from pandemic, George Floyd. There was no alternative. So if this were a normal news cycle, or if it were whatever sense of normalcy that we have, do you think that we would have seen the same level of engagement? I guess that's my question. Christina, Joe, whoever, y'all
Okay.
take shit on you, go.
Christina, you want to go first?
Well, I was just going to say we saw an incredible amount of engagement and a movement with Trayvon Martin. I never understand why it's one person versus not another person, but there wasn't, you didn't have the pandemic then, and it was a massive movement.
Yeah, but we didn't. I don't know that I would agree that we saw it on a global basis the way we saw it with George Floyd.
Well, I think, Derek, I think the difference is, and I think you partially right on that, because people were home. But I think the difference is that it's always a crisis for black folks. But for the first time, white people got a chance to witness the same thing that we've been witnesses and seeing all of our lives. They hadn't been able to see into that, so they saw that. And that's why it became an international issue. What I'm saying about when it always has to be a boiling point for us, whether you agree with this or not, even with the OJ trial, okay? Black folks came together to support, they didn't support OJ, but they support the decision. For the first time, they saw the justice system work against them like it always worked against us for the first time. And so you see how we coalesced around that issue, okay? That's when we come together because of that particular crisis. In most crises, we would have had the same reaction with George Floyd as with Trayvon Martin, absence of the other folks, okay, because they didn't see it. Just like George, just like Trayvon, it was something that happened in isolation. They didn't witness for themselves. George Floyd, we have eyewitness. People could see it for themselves. That's why white folks are crazy. That's why they don't want you to talk about critical race theory, because they believe that white folk can see it and make decisions for themselves, just like they saw with the George Floyd incident. They saw it with their own eyes. They know what it wasn't right, and so forth. And that may be our only salvation, that we have. We can get those folks to see it for themselves, okay? Because they're not impacted by it now. They're not hurting by it. Because that's a great point that you brought up, I think. If we can only get our white brothers and sisters to see and feel what we feel, then maybe it might make a difference. But I think you got forces that working very hard to keep them in the dark, okay?
Yeah.
So they don't see it.
And I think we're saying the same thing again with what my point is. Yes, I don't disagree that the black response would have been the same as what it was. I 100% agree with you. But again, we saw just about the same level of response from a global perspective or non-people of color, because they saw it. And I guess what I'm saying is the reason why, to me, in my opinion, the reason why they saw it in their face all the time is because we were in a pandemic. So people were home. It had no choice but to see it. I mean, again,
I don't know, Derek. You take the Rodney King thing way back then. That was the first time people saw it for themselves, and I think people were outraged about that. Okay, even though it didn't make a lot of difference, but they saw it for themselves back then. Well, I hear what you're saying. The pandemic
Mhm.
obviously gave them an opportunity to see it. You know, things that they wouldn't see before. What is the name of that crazy show? The Lion King or the Lion Man or whatever it was. They got a chance to see him. He probably wouldn't went to jail if they hadn't showed that.
Oh, Tiger
The
King.
Tiger King.
Tiger King.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
Tiger
thank you.
King.
Yeah, Tiger King.
Okay.
I was like,
Well,
the
you
Lion King.
see how that was
Yeah,
played out. See how that impacted folks, right?
yeah,
If
right,
people
right.
hadn't been at home looking at TV, they wouldn't have cared either way.
Right,
Okay,
right.
all right.
And I think during normal periods, there's an alternative on television. You could go turn the channel and see something else. Or like, to your point, if you saw it on TV, you saw it, but people could change the channel or like, okay. Or there was something else that they could see, or they could question, well, what did he do in those circumstances?
Mm-hmm.
This one was in your face and it was right there and you saw it repetitively.
But
So
there
you
was
couldn't help.
other things on the TV that you could watch.
Like what?
Like anything that you wanted to, because you could stream anything. I was home.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can stream, but if you're watching normal,
whatever you wanted to. So
if you're watching normal cable television or air television, that's what you saw.
I would say, yes, I think that they saw it, but I think that I agree with the other side of what Vernon was saying, which is once you saw that, that's life altering, Derek. You only needed to see it once. You only needed to see it once. You only needed to see that one time for them to wake up and realize what we see all the time, what we feel all the time. And I would then link that to my question I asked earlier, which is how do we get them to feel that when you say that we're one election cycle away from slavery? I just want them to feel that. I need them to feel that emotion. Yeah. That's what I'm trying to get to. I don't really care if the pandemic did or didn't, because what it did do is it gave us a movement, and whether it was the pandemic or not, and it's something that should have never happened.
Right.
Something that we can't ever take back, but it is something that brought us together, and I need to know what is it without us having to lose more lives that we can do to bring us together so that we can move forward. That's what we have to figure out. That should be our purpose and our future movement. What do we have to do so we can bring each other together so we can move forward and live the life that we're supposed to live? Not perfect, but not in hell. I don't want to live hell on earth. I don't. I don't. Not purposely, not because of foolish people.
Oh, well, yeah, I agree.
Bill, I see you thinking.
Well, I haven't seen her that passionate since I was on the cruise watching the show from the cruise ship.
Jill, you are 100% right. 100%. I 100% agree with you fully. And so how do you get that? Saturday school. We have to start educating early. We have to care. We have to listen. You know, I have not fully reached all of my kids, and I'm pretty engaged. You know, I try really, really hard. I definitely make mistakes. I'm not perfect, and that's in my own home. So, you know, I think if we could just all go home and love and explain and keep explaining and keep showing and keep telling, you know, it may fall on deaf ears, but we never know what seed is going to be planted.
But that's Black people, right? Yeah, like.
Listen, I'll take that as step one, but then, what do we do with everybody else?
Yeah.
I think everybody needs to start there. I absolutely believe that it starts at home for those that have that at home. Everybody doesn't have an engaged parent at home that understands, because if your parents don't understand it, where are they going to get it from? So we can't, parents have a responsibility, but you can't have the responsibility if you unfortunately are in a situation where you aren't equipped with what you need to be equipped with. So, and Saturday school sounds great, and I don't know how you guys did it then, but now it would be a challenge because our kids don't like school Monday through Friday. So, but I think we have to be creative. I think we have to, I just think we can't just sit and talk about it anymore. I think we have to figure out things. We need to come up, it's just my personal opinion, that we need to say, okay, this is what we're going to do. And then we need to do it. Because we can talk about this for the next 6 months. And then 6 months from then, we're going to be sitting in the same place saying, well, it didn't happen. Now what? And then we will be the election cycle in which we become slaves. And I'm not really ready for that. And I don't want that to happen. I don't know what it would be like because I didn't live during that time, but I'm not trying to go there either. So I think we've got to figure it out. And we don't have all the answers. And so the viewing audience and others across all of the places that Vernon, your show gets to, we need your help.
Worldwide.
Can't do it by ourselves. Worldwide, we need help. But we got to come up with some solutions, some answers. We have to.
Well, I think that kind of segue into what Derek's agenda is about. We're going to have to prioritize our national agenda here. So, Derek, let's talk about that. That's a good start, a good transition, a good place to start.
Yeah, very great transition. What should we? And I'll formulate it into two-part questions. What should, in 2020, as we move forward into 2024, what should Black Americans prioritize as their national agenda, and what can Black Americans do to help shape what should be the prioritization of the global community?
Not everybody at the same time.
I know, right?
So I know not everybody's going to agree with me on this, and but just hear me out. I say voting rights because voting rights secures all other rights. And I mean voting rights from the right to be able to cast your ballot, having fair maps and districting. I mean, all of it across the board. You know, if you have gerrymandered your district, your state, whatever, you can vote all day long. And, you know, you're not going to see the fruit of that. So again, that's just mine. My second one would be economics and economic opportunities, and tie that into education. Education has to be a priority. Education is key. But voting rights secures all other rights.
Can I say something real radical? I know nobody, Jill and Christine, y'all might want to close your ears for a minute. Because no, I want you to hear it, but I want you to close your ears for a minute because not what I'm going to say. I remember saying this is crazy, but it makes sense in a way. But not that I'm saying to implement this, okay, for anybody. You was talking about how things are gerrymandered and how in the Republican Party, you know, the Republican controlled everything. Now I made this advice years ago. I remember when Escambia County was Democratic, okay, and Okaloosa County was totally Republican, okay. You couldn't get in it. Your vote really didn't matter in Okaloosa County 20 years ago, okay. And my suggestion was okay, if you want to participate in that platform, okay, sign up as a Republican, okay, because you can shape. You can shape your thing. You might not like what you get, but you can influence it. Then you can always switch back. That I don't know. These are crazy radical ideas. I just think about, you know, sometimes if you want to participate in the process, you want to shape it because you can't control it. And the one thing that Leroy, I always quote, and the first time I heard that term, I used to hear Leroy Boyd, the founder of Movement for Change, used to say, I can be managed, but I cannot be controlled. Now, we can't control that process, but I think by voting, and we can kind of manage it a little bit. Maybe we can help get people in that we want of that persuasion, or help get people out that we don't want. And then when we get into a position that then we can always go back. But I'm just throwing that out there just for
Okay, so
for
I'm
these
gonna turn.
for
I'm
all
gonna
three of these.
ask.
When I said that, I didn't mean to be sexist, because I forgot Derek is the chairman of the Democratic. It was a Democratic.
Yeah, but
It was
he's in the
Democratic Republican
Scandia,
thing.
and I'm in Okaloosa, so I just want to know, Vernon, if you're the reason that they have that movement in Okaloosa, where all of the Democrats, not all, but many Democrats switched to Republican and forgot to switch back. So is that your fault?
Maybe I was advocating it.
Yeah, so I'm gonna turn it over to Jill and Christina, because so they can share with our viewing public. Because what I want to go on record as saying is that I, as Derek Scott, with my hats on and with my hats off, do not advocate anybody switching parties to the Republican Party to go vote and then switching back. That's not going to work. But Jill, Christina, why don't you share your thoughts as to why that is an absolutely
stupid idea
from your not stupid, just not going to work.
Right. Well, so in Okaloosa County, where they forgot to switch back, many of them. What I would say is there is a 30-70 split. So even if 30% of the Democrats were to switch to Republican, now you got 100% Republican, you still got 70% of them that are going to vote for who they want. So your 30% still is not helping. The person you want is probably not the person they wanted anyway. So it didn't help. All you did is just take a Democrat completely out of the picture. That's all. You just took the opportunity to have someone who thinks like you, or give the community another opportunity to have somebody with a different mindset, the opportunity to be on the ballot, to be on the school board, to be in the commission, to be wherever. So I would say for that reason alone, I feel like I'm on Shark Tank. I'm out.
Vernon is a shark.
But I thought, wait a minute, I mean, because that only applied to primary stuff, okay? That's only applied to primary stuff, but general election, you can vote any way you want to.
Yes, but in the primary, let's just say we're going to use you and Christina because you're at the bottom of my wonderful screen. If you both are Republicans, but we wanted Christina, but everybody else wanted Vernon. Even if we came in and 30% of us voted for Christina, if the other 70% voted for you, why did I switch to be a Republican? Just so that she could get 30% of the vote?
Well, you never know.
Primary,
you never.
It didn't do me any good. And unfortunately, Derek and Bill, who were Democrats, couldn't get any vote because we all switched to Republican because we thought we were doing something. Well, we've been better off having somebody to run against you, Vernon.
Well, it's a strategy, Jill. It's a strategy of getting the lesser of the evils. Okay, so somebody else might have been running that you really didn't want, because you could kick him out. You can use it against that person and get somebody less of the evils. That was the only strategy I think that will work.
You can't beat the devil by joining him.
I don't know.
And it only works if Vernon, you're who we want, and that's who the people want. So if the Republicans wanted Christina and we want Christina, then it works.
Yeah.
But if the Republicans want you and we want Christina, then it doesn't work. You still win, and we lost putting a Democrat on the ballot to run against you. Now you get to just breeze on in.
But I got a chance to vote, though.
Yeah, you got a chance.
Oh, that was so that was done in Santa Rosa County too. There are a lot of people that think like that. A whole lot. The way our primary system is set up isn't. It needs a lot of work. Folks can get written out, shut out. There are so many loopholes within our system, particularly here in Florida, that it is really, it's really, really difficult. Something like that, like what you're describing, might work only if the two Republicans are evenly 100% split down the middle. And that rarely happens. Rarely. So you may get a 1% to 2% bump on one candidate, sure. But you absolutely lost out on some of your local stuff that you didn't get to vote for at all. And we also, that's not how we build power. So what we need is we need more Democrats to run. We need folks to know that we're here. And I want to stress this, particularly for a very, very red county like mine. So I'm in Santa Rosa County. So even if we lose, it's not always losing, because the person who we're going up against may have to make concessions to move forward. And then we can hold them accountable to that. It pushes our issues out there. When we don't run, we're just totally giving up a seat. So we need to support those Democrats who are out there. We need to connect across the state and stop feeling like we're living in silos all by ourselves. We're not by ourselves, not by any stretch of the imagination. And so we need to pull that power. We need to feel that power. What just happened in Jackson, they had a record number turnout. They didn't just all go switch to Republicans. They had a record number turnout. But the whole system was rigged against them. But it's not because they did something wrong. It's not because they weren't engaged. They were all there and showed up. So I am really pleading, like, for the federal government, we really need the Voting Rights Act passed. That will give us a starting point. It's not the end point. We still have too many people sitting on couches. We're still not engaging. We're still not doing what we need to do, but that will help give us a better starting point. And from there, we can build power. So.
Can you ask your question again, your national power question?
Yeah, that wasn't it. But what national power? No. I said, what should we as Black, over the next 12 months, as we move forward into this next election cycle, what should Black Americans prioritize as the top of their national agenda? And the second half of the question is, what should Black Americans help or identify to the global community to influence what the national agenda should be from a global perspective?
Okay. So I had national, right?
Just not power.
Power agenda. Perception, you know. So I would say, although I think what Christina said is powerful and important, I still think it's issue-based. Somehow we have to, because I don't know that if you just start with voting and gerrymandering and all of that, that you're not getting everybody. I know that we don't understand it, but the entire Black population is not sitting in front of freaking CNN and the news and the political realm of life. Believe it or not, there is another part of life that's outside of politics. So wish we could all live in it. I just really do. We can't because it's everywhere, but there are a mass group of people who live a life and don't realize how politics infiltrates every part of their life. So it's got to be issue driven. Now, what those issues are, I think that's what we have to figure out, but I think we have to start with issues because that's where you're going to meet them. You have to meet them where they are. And I don't think, if you're talking about nationally, that it's going to be voting, that voting's the number one. It might be a issue, but I don't think we can start with just voting.
Yeah.
One of the things, Derek and the panel, I think, Jill, I agree with you wholeheartedly on what you're saying. But the real problem I think that we're facing for the FY24 election, I mean the election in 24 is a presidential election, and regardless of what we say, that's going to be a challenge because Biden I see it as not only Biden's in trouble, we're in trouble. We are in trouble as I can see it now. I'm hoping those polls are wrong. But, and the reason I don't believe they're so far off is because when I do my own independent survey and I talk to people and they're saying the same thing. And so we're going to have to get on the campaign at the Democratic Party and as black folks, in particular Democratic Party, because I think this feeling about age is not just a black issue. I don't think black folks just thinking that way. A lot of folks across the board, whites and all other races, saying that this age thing might be a deal breaker. Okay, and so some strategy gonna have to give. But I believe, I do believe, and I hope I'm right about this. Okay, the only salvation I believe that the Biden train has is Trump get the nomination. Okay, I think he even though they're saying he don't stand a chance against Trump, but I believe that he can beat Trump. Okay, because I think people of good minds and goodwill not gonna go with this crazy train. I'd rather be on the Biden train than the crazy train. You got two choices: the Biden train, the old, and as I said, the soul train instead of the old train or the crazy train. So I'm getting on that old train. Okay, and I think most folks that has in a sense will probably get on that old train instead of getting on that crazy train. But now, if he doesn't get it, if he gets somebody like Nikki Haley or somebody else, I'm worried. Okay.
I don't think you have to worry much about Nikki.
Well, even that crazy ass DeSantis, which is even worse.
There you go.
Okay, so I'm worried.
You delineate between the old train and the crazy train.
Yeah.
I think that is a great delineation for those of us who are engaged and who see it as such. But you have at least 80 million people, if not now more, who don't see the crazy train as crazy train. They see it as the right train. They see it as the good train. They see it as
see it as a train.
But those people that are being polled,
them somewhere.
The people that are being polled are those people, man. You got to. I'm telling you, man, don't trust all of that polling. I'm riding with you on Vernon on this one here, man. Man, if I call 100 Republicans and ask them how they're voting, you're gonna get the 80% that you guys are speaking of. Man, those numbers I think are skewed big time when it comes to Trump Biden.
Well, so how do you then explain the youth vote? Because they're not.
That's where we're in trouble. Yeah. That's where we're in trouble. But it goes the same way now. If you're polling 100% of Republican youth, you're gonna get those skewed numbers. But now we are in trouble when it comes to Gen Z. I agree wholeheartedly.
So go ahead.
I have two questions. I don't know that I would say, you guys can tell me I'm wrong, but I would say that we should say our Gen Z. I heard that. Did you say I'm wrong?
I didn't say that. I don't know who said that, but it wasn't me.
He said it under his breath. He said, you're wrong. I would say I would rather look at our Gen Z as NPAs because the majority of them sit there. There's no reason to call them Republican or Democratic because they sit in the middle.
I agree with that.
Purposely.
I agree with that. But now nobody's talking about the independent vote.
Right. I think that's where they sit. They sit in that independent. That's where they sit. So polling them, I think, is truth. And I think that's why it's truth.
But we're doing well with the independents per the polls.
But not with young people. But this is my question. So is it that, and this might be my most outside of the box tonight. Is it that Biden needs a makeover? Like I need him not with the sunglasses and the thing, but I'm just saying like a makeover, like so that he's more like I saw him today for the first time. I don't know. I wasn't paying attention. I don't pay much attention because I'm voting for Biden, so I don't pay attention. But I saw him and he was sitting he was just standing there and he was just in a suit and he was just boring. He was just there. He just was.
Yeah. Not energetic at all.
He was just there. Does he need to? I mean, he didn't say anything. He was just there, and he was just there. I don't know how else to say it.
think that
And that's
might be.
me saying that, and I like Biden. So I could see somebody 20 going, he's literally just on my screen, saying nothing, doing nothing. And then you've got crazy who they think is somewhat normal because that's what
Can I
they
throw
think.
this in for?
Like, So do we need to
Let me throw this in,
revamp
Jill.
him into something that they can? I'm not saying put him on TikTok. I'm just saying, what do we need to do so that he seems more like someone they can relate to?
And
Not
no,
what,
not
what has he done, all of that, but someone they can relate to, because I think that's what they're missing. They can't relate to the Grandpa Biden.
Right.
and
We're
certainly
gonna
not
have to
some
go
as
to
the-
a.
Great Grandpa Biden.
Hey, Jill, I
Not
don't
in
know whether y'all
sunglasses and
too
a
young to
convertible.
remember this or
Right.
not, but we're gonna have to do a strategy like they did. You remember when, I don't know which company had the commercial, whether it was Pepsi or Coke, okay? And I think it was a Pepsi commercial, and somebody called up and get an order of Coke, and they got the orders mixed up. They were supposed to have been sending the Cokes to the frat house, and they were supposed to send the Pepsi to the old folks' home, and they got them all mixed up. And then when they come out, when the Pepsi got to the frat house, they was all sitting around all bored, and then they cut a shot to the old folks' home, and the folks who were drinking Coke, they was all energetic and partying and stuff like that.
They might need that Biden come out and do something.
So we need to send Biden some Coke. Because I think it is, honestly, now, y'all forgive me for this, but I'm an old man myself. I ain't too far behind Biden, okay? But when I see Biden walking around like an old man, just it scares me sometimes, and I think it scares other folks too. Then you see that old crazy ass Trump. He get out there, he's old, just as old as Biden, but he get out there, but he's so energetic and stupid that folks saying, okay, there's a little big difference here. Go ahead, Bill.
Today was the first day that I was like, wait a minute, what?
I always seen him moping around like an old ass man.
The first day that I saw it, and I was like,
Jill, I think that them having Biden stand there and move as little as possible is purposefully.
Maybe
because
so.
of the way he is and moves, man. Biden, man, I'm pro Joe.
Me too.
Pro Joe, when pro Joe walk, pro Joe scares the dickens out of me, man.
Me too. And I think he scares a lot of people. He just does not have the energy to image is everything. Because that's what you see. And people look at that and say, oh Lord, can this man last through the day? You know what I'm saying? Even though he's doing some great things for the country, but it's just this thing about.
So how do we? I mean, we obviously can't fix this, but I'm just saying there's got to be something. Again, what is it that we're missing? Because we can't say that we just got to have him just stand there, because that's not going to do it. I mean, just think of all of you that have nieces, nephews, grandkids, children that are 30 years or less. That's not going to get it. It's
I'm glad. I'm glad that fella stopped calling him Sleepy Joe. I know that.
Well, I want to just go back, because when you said, so everybody doesn't take it to clip it and make it a soundbite, when you said to give President Biden some Coke, that you actually meant Coca-Cola. Just so
well, hell, I don't know. Now let's think about this, Terry. We might just get the other kind. I'm just joking.
Hey, they found something in the White House, so
Coca-Cola, red and white can, Coca-Cola.
Right.
They found something in the White House.
But no, to your point, it is like, and I always notice, he has that like, have you ever noticed when he turns, instead of like turning his neck, he kind of turns his whole body, which it doesn't help in the way he was like, turn your neck, go to the light, go this way, like the whole. What you say is like,
fusion. I can only turn my whole neck. I'm just saying.
Well, I mean, but we're not trying to sell you to the mass of people as somebody young and energetic and in charge. It's all they got to do is look at the computer there, and they'll be like, "Oh, I'm voting for Jill because you go everywhere under the sun." But that's not what we're trying to do. We're talking about Joe Biden. Like it hurts. And again, I continue to say, don't put that man in no sunglasses and no convertible ever no more. Not never, never, ever. I don't want to see it. But I don't know what the alternative, like former President Biden used to play basketball. That gave him a little bit of usefulness to what he did. I don't want to see Joe Biden playing basketball. I don't know what the equivalent to playing basketball is for Joe Biden, but they need to find it because it's missing at this point. To me, I get just as nervous to your point, when I see him walking as when I see that other man. I keep forgetting his name in the Senate, Mitch McConnell, because he always falls, right?
And freezes.
Like, oh, please don't get on the TV and fall. But that is that's where we're at. Yes, Christina.
Your mic off, Christina.
You're muted.
I know. So I was just going to say that he has fallen, and he has fallen on TV. He's fallen at a graduation announcement. There was some stairs coming off the plane where he stumbled on. So he has fallen. I would just remind everybody he's 81. He's always had
That's the problem.
Let's not remind nobody of that.
So, thank you.
It is what it is.
He's always had problems speaking, always. So he's always had a stutter. He's always had this, that, and the other. So what comes across doesn't always play well, especially on TV or in media. But what we need to do is really highlight his accomplishments and what he's doing for the American people, and keep pushing on that.
But y'all know the elephant in the room, as much as Joe age is an issue, but the bigger elephant in the room is that I don't think nobody wants to see Kamala as president. That's what the thing is from the other folks' perspective. Our perspective, I think, from the Democratic Party's perspective, we're concerned about his age. I think from the other Republican Party's perspective, they're concerned about not having a black woman as the first president of the the first woman president of the United States. I think that's more than anything else.
That's why I say Nikki doesn't have a chance.
Well, Nikki got a chance. She's a white woman.
But I'm telling you, man, the conservatives ain't for no female, man.
Okay, Bill. All right, Bill. Okay. I don't think Nikki gonna survive the nomination, but if she were to survive the nomination, she's gonna become the United States first woman president.
As qualified as Hillary was, man, and they are not trying to hear nothing about no. I'm telling you, man.
She did the same thing as Hillary. She was Secretary of State. I mean, she was a governor. Her credentials matches with Hillary now.
Vice president. She wasn't a vice president.
No, what? Not even
man,
Hillary.
When you are the vice president and you know national security, foreign affairs, and all of what Hillary was, man, and the conservative white men and white women ain't trying to hear nothing about no woman president, man. Telling you.
I disagree with you.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Christina
wanted to get in. She wanted to say something super. Come on, Christina. You got to jump in when you can, sugar.
You got to jump in. I can hear Miss Karen now.
Well, y'all know I love Vice President Kamala Harris. I am here for Kamala. So
me too.
But I did have an announcement to make on November 27th at 6 p.m. at St. Augustine's Church in Navarre. I will be running for president of the Women's Club. And so my appeal is I need your vote. I need everybody to show up, become a member. Membership is $30. And if you feel like you would support me, I would be most honored. So again, we're going to run out of time soon. That meeting is going to be November 27th, 6 p.m. at St. Augustine's Church in Navarre. I would love for everybody to become a member. Membership is $30. And please just reach out to me. You can leave it in the comments. I'll check comments after the show and give you more information. But I don't want to see our women's club go away. We need more spaces for Democrats, not less. And so if you can see me as the president the Women's Club, I could definitely use your support and use your voice and use your vote. So thank you. And thank you, Derek, for that time.
I was going to make a joke, but then I was like, well, it probably would be. Going to say, Christina is trying to. There's a battle to see who's going to be the hardest working woman in the Florida Democratic Party. So Christina is running neck and neck with Jill there in that sense. So thank you for your drums.
Thank you, ladies.
Yeah, but yeah, we all definitely want to support Christina in her run for the DWC women, or the Democratic Women's Club president for Santa Rosa.
They have to be a resident of Santa Rosa.
And that's a great question, Christina. Why don't you take that? Do they have to be a resident of Santa Rosa County?
So you do have to be a registered Democrat. You don't have to necessarily live in Santa Rosa County. But when you put your information that you're interested, I'll get back with you. I'll get more information from you, and then we would be able to go from there. But no, you don't exclusively have to live in Santa Rosa County. I could use your votes.
Do you have to show up to vote?
Yes. You do. So again, and that's on Monday, November 27th, 6 p.m. at St. Augustine's Church in Navarre. It's right off Highway 98. You'll see hopefully a whole bunch of cars there. I will be there, and I would love to meet everybody. So thank you.
Thank you for that. Are there any other announcements? Again, just wanted to make sure that people are aware that tomorrow we will be saying our final goodbyes and farewell to the woman, the icon, the woman who has touched all of our lives, both on this screen and certainly beyond, Miss Carol McIntosh. And that is again tomorrow at 11 p.m. at Antioch Missionary Baptist Church.
11 a.m.
A.m.
What did I say?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, 11 o'clock a.m. at Antioch Missionary Baptist Church. Thank you for the correction. And that's at 625 North D Street here in Pensacola. Again, 625 North D Street. I think Bill, Mr. Vernon, one of them said it earlier. She's touched a lot of folks. So that means there are going to be a lot of people tomorrow. So certainly you want to get there and allow yourself enough time to get there, get a seat. And if you can't make it, as Mr. Vernon said, they will be live streaming it and showing it live on WBQP on their stations, and then on real time in Roku, YouTube, Facebook, and all the other streaming platforms. Are there any other announcements or questions or things that we can answer?
Miss Carol, we miss Miss Carol already.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. With that, we won't be together again before Thanksgiving. So from our family here at Our Voices, we want to wish all of you all and everybody on this platform a happy Thanksgiving. To our viewers, happy Thanksgiving. Be thankful, be safe, be reflective, and just enjoy your holiday. And we will see you next Sunday, same place, same time, here on Our Voices.
Be safe, everybody.
Thank you, everybody, and have a great evening.
Good night, everybody.
Good night. Okay.